Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, my name is Sylvia Indriani. I currently majoring international relations at University of Pasundan. This time, I'm gonna talk about the role of NATO in Ukraine-Russia conflict. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or as we know, NATO, was founded in 1949 after World War II. NATO's founding members are Belgium, Canada, Denmark, France, Iceland, Italy, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, Norway, Portugal, UK, US, and its newest member, North Macedonia, which joined in 2020. Three partner countries of NATO are Ukraine, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Georgia, have expressed their aspiration to be part of the alliance, since NATO offers to ensure the freedom and security of its members through political and military means. The alliance was originally part of an attempt by the United States and its European allies to delay the expansion of the Soviet Union, or USSR at that time, and reduce the chance of conflict by encouraging greater political integration among its strongest power. In the decades since, NATO has continued to broaden its orientation, bringing a number of Central and Eastern European countries into the ranks after the collapse of the Soviet Union. Furthermore, regarding the current issues between Ukraine and Russia, the role of NATO, which has been criticized as the cause or background of the dispute between two parties. Ukraine has repeatedly stated its intention to become a NATO member state. The principle set out by the NATO state that an attack on one ally is considered as an attack on all allies. Its members are committed to protecting each other. It's one of the main reasons why Ukraine interests in joining the alliance, to increase its defense power. All of NATO allies agreed that an attack against one or more of them shall be considered an attack against them all, and that following such an attack, each ally will take such action as it deems necessary, including the use of armed force in response. During the Cold War era, NATO once adopted the strategic doctrine of massive retaliation. If the Soviet Union attacked, NATO will respond with nuclear weapons. It is clear that NATO would use nuclear weapons anytime soon if the Soviet Union attacked one of their member states. After the Soviet Union collapsed, Russia itself could not maintain a good relationship with NATO. Russia realized that they will not win over the NATO member states. Indeed, Russia has a large number of troops and also a lot of military equipment. But it will not be unequal to face NATO's member states if Ukraine joined NATO and Russia invaded Ukraine. Russia needs to face a bigger consequence than it's already now. Russia will also facing the United States of America face to face if Russia threatens Ukraine's security. It will be harder for the involved parties and could create a devastating impact. Therefore, the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin, asked so many times to NATO for not allowing Ukraine to be the part of NATO. If Ukraine joins NATO, then there will be a high chance that the world will see a nuclear war between Russia and NATO. Hence, in 2008, NATO leaders promised Ukraine that one day they would provide an opportunity to join the alliance. But despite deepening cooperation in the years since, it is unlikely that this phenomenon will happen anytime soon. This is because Western powers are not yet convinced that Kiev has done enough to erase corruption and meet the other necessary political, economic, and military criteria for entering the alliance. NATO members may also be wary of Ukraine joining its alliance while tension at tense of Moscow remains high. This move could pull NATO into direct conflict with Russia. Meanwhile, the issue of Ukraine's membership was not on the agenda after talks with President Zelensky in Kiev. Although the Ukrainian president repeating his country's membership ambition, in all 30 NATO allies must unanimously agree on a new country to be part of the alliance. Meanwhile, The problems caused between Russia and Ukraine are based on Putin's statement to fight the wave of NATO expansion and urge the alliance to guarantee that Ukraine will never be allowed to become a NATO member. According to Putin, the West had betrayed Moscow by violating the verbal commitment made at the end of the Cold War, in which NATO would not expand eastward, although it was denied by the NATO itself. As a response to the military threat, the alliance went to negotiate with Moscow and defuse the situation, but high-level diplomatic efforts have had little success. Washington and NATO reject the Kremlin's key demands. Russia has refused to all military activity in Eastern Europe, and Ukraine is barred from becoming a member. On the other hand, NATO has moved to strengthen its eastern side with additional troops and military equipment. Yet, it will be extraordinarily difficult to expand NATO eastward without the action being viewed by Russia as unfriendly. Hence, after several months of conflicts, NATO's involvement in the Russo-Ukrainian conflict is getting bigger. Due to the massive movement from NATO, the Russian government says it is currently not only fighting against Ukraine. NATO is the only structure who is implementing military intervention in the world conflict effectively, but also with legitimacy of its member and sometimes under the UN mandate. NATO and Russia never have a good relationship. NATO itself is founded in response to the threat posed by the Soviet Union. Even though the Soviet Union already collapsed, the world has come to an agreement that Russia is the new Soviet Union. Therefore, NATO always seen Russia as a threat, as well as Russia always seen NATO as a threat because Russia could not join NATO. Yet, NATO want to expand their member to the eastward, which is located near Russia. Russia actually tried to protect its national security for not letting NATO expand to the eastward. And Russia-Ukraine is one of the efforts that Russia chose to protect its national security from NATO. To conclude, regarding this issue, I believe that NATO cannot and should not disappear. However, we should not install the idea that NATO is present to stay because the people need democratic global institutions having monopoly offers at global levels. Only then world peace will be possible to be reached. That's it for me. Thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.